Hi, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell, and we're doing a content video today, and it's going to be on renting versus buying. Now, usually when you see a mortgage guy or a real estate guy or a lady, talking about a rent versus buy comparison, you can pretty much figure that they got their thumb on the scale, that they have a vested interest in seeing you buy. Okay, well, and I'm no different, but however, my channel goes out, on YouTube to everywhere, so chances are there is just as good a chance you're looking at this video in Iowa or New Mexico than what you are here in North Carolina, where I'm licensed, and that could actually do your deal. So anyway, I'm going to try to play this straight up. Okay, if you think I succeed, or if you think I don't succeed, let me know in the comments. Okay, so anyway, biggest determination on whether you should rent versus buy is what kind of lifestyle do you want to live. Okay, do you, the example I'll give is that of my son. My son's a young professional. He travels quite a bit for work. He's single, doesn't have any kids, doesn't have any pets. Um, for him, renting is probably the best thing. He rents I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment, but from what I understand, it's a pretty cool apartment in downtown Knoxville, and he's within stumbling distance of his local watering hole and his favorite place to go in there and get street tacos and that sort of thing. Um, that lifestyle is what appeals to him right now at this point in his life. He doesn't want to, when he comes in off the road, he travels quite a bit for work. When he comes in off the road, he doesn't necessarily want to have to worry about mowing the grass or maintaining the mower to mow the grass. So for him, his lifestyle leads towards one thinking about renting. If that's the case, then yeah. Now, the one thing he and you have to recognize is that freedom, that lack of hassle, that sort of thing comes at a cost. Okay, one, you're not going to participate in the real estate values going up. True, you're not going to participate if real estate values go down either, but chances are, as long as we have an inflationary environment, if we get into deflation, then all bets are off, and it becomes a different story. But we haven't had that. It threatened it a couple of times, but that's not been something that anybody's been worried about. And here recently, the buzz has been on inflation as opposed to deflation. But as long as we live in an inflationary environment and the cost of roofing nails and roofing shingles goes up by X% per year, the cost of building new homes is going to go up by that same percentage. If the cost of new homes goes up by X%, chances are the price of existing homes in that same market are going to trail behind and keep pace with that. So chances are, if you rent as opposed to buying, you're going to miss out on the opportunity for appreciation. Okay, now here over the last couple of years, that appreciation's been smoking in most markets, so it looks even better. Whether that's likely to continue or not, we don't know. If inflation does continue and does continue at a higher rate, generally speaking, that's good for holding real estate, because basically you're locking your payment in on a 30-year fixed rate or a 15-year fixed rate. The principal and interest portion of your payment is going to be locked in. So no matter what the inflation goes to, your payment's going to stay roughly the same. Now, your cost of your insurance and your taxes might go up, and probably will go up in an inflationary environment, but still that makes up only a small percentage of your total payment. So again, we're kind of drifting off. As far as the lifestyle goes, the cost of picking that less restrictive lifestyle is going to be that you don't participate in any kind of appreciation of the property. Now, you also don't have to maintain the property. Okay, now if you're renting a single family house, that might not be the case. You might have what they call a triple net lease, where you're responsible for the maintenance of the property as well as the mowing of the grass and that sort of thing. But I'm talking about rental in general, not a specific set of circumstances like that. So anyway, now for somebody who would be interested in that apartment type of lifestyle, you might want to consider buying a condominium. Okay, now buying a condominium is a little bit different than buying a single family detached, in that you're going to have to deal with a condominium association, and as part of that, a member of that association, you're also going to have to pay condo association dues. That's what they pay for the exterior maintenance of the property. That's what they pay for the cost of maintaining the property, of taking care of the pool, of doing any upgrades, putting a new roof on when it's due, that sort of thing. So you do have to be careful of what the cost of the condominium association fees are going to be, but recognize that if you're renting, that the person who owns that property is renting to you as an investment. They're not being charitable to you. So generally speaking, your rent payment is going to include the principal and interest, the insurance, the taxes, any expenses that the owner pays on that property, plus a profit to that person for undertaking the hassle for owning the property. So generally speaking, one way or the other, you're going to end up paying for that convenience. So by buying a condominium, compare what paying the principal and the interest and the condominium association, as well as the taxes and insurance. Compare that to what your rental of a similar unit would be. Okay. If you think that you're going to be out of the area in a while, that you're not secure, that your job's not secure, then renting might be the better choice. But if your job's secure and you're going to be in the area for a while, then you might want to consider buying a unit as opposed to renting one. Now, if you decide to go with a single family house, now I'm a big fan of single family houses. I'm not a huge fan of sharing walls with people, be it in a condominium or in a townhouse complex, that sort of thing. But if you do choose to buy a single family house, recognize that just about everything involved in that can be farmed out. Okay, you don't want to mow grass? Well, hire the kid down the street to mow your grass, or hire a service to mow your grass. Now, again, nothing's free. You have to take into account what those services are going to cost you. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb is $1 per square foot per year. So if you live in a 1,200 square foot house, you can pretty much figure out that about $100 a month needs to be set aside for the maintenance and upkeep and improvements of the house. I would probably go closer to $1.50 per dollar, closer to $1.50 as opposed to $1 per square foot, just simply because that way it gives you a little bit of leeway. And if you do run into something big, it's better to have more money set aside than not. Now, if you're wrong and things last a lot longer, then you might end up with a surplus. You might be able to peel some of that money back out later on. But again, recognize that even if you buy a single family house and you want to live that carefree lifestyle, you can contract with people who will come by and mow your grass and trim your hedges and take care of all the exterior maintenance of the property. You can set it up with an HVAC technician to come in once or twice a year to swap your filters out and to clean the place, clean the HVAC system out, rinse the coils off, all that sort of jazz. All the things that a landlord would be doing for you if you were renting, you can do for yourself. You can make arrangements to where basically you're just cutting a check. Now, if you do that, again, you have to compare what's my principal, interest, insurance, and taxes and the cost of doing that. If you figured $1.50, or maybe if you wanted to be really conservative, $2 per thousand or $2 per square foot of the property per year divided by 12, that'll give you a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost you to hire that sort of thing out. And to be able to put aside money to where when the roof needs to be replaced, that you have the money stashed to in order to replace the roof. Okay, so now we tend to focus on cost. I'm a mortgage banker, so I'm a number cruncher. We tend to focus on cost, but we also have to consider the hassle of it. Okay, again, if you contract ahead of time, it's not going to be hassle free. You're still going to have times when the people don't show up, or when you have to cancel because it's not rained in the last 3 weeks and you don't need your grass cut, or you really the HVAC guy is scheduled to come over on Tuesday, and now somebody wants you to fly out of town to meet him on Tuesday. It's not going to be hassle free, but you can cut out a lot of the hassle. So hassle, no hassle. Yeah, owning a house is probably going to be a little bit more hassle than just renting an apartment. But again, you have to look at it. You're not participating in the appreciation. And there are other things too, like if you need something fixed. I think I told a story in a previous thing, but when I went back to school, my wife and I rented a little apartment in the Dalles, Oregon, and it was just a little hellhole. There wasn't a whole bunch of apartments available, and it was the only one that we could get. It had probably a 35-year-old refrigerator in there. And while we were living there, it just shot crap. So it got to the point where if you put water into, you put an ice tray into the freezer. First of all, I had ice trays, not an ice maker. And you put it into the freezer, it would take 8 or 10 hours to freeze. And then it got to the point where it wouldn't even freeze it. So, we reached out to the landlord and said, hey, our refrigerator's not working. And they said, oh, well, we'll send a guy by, and again, hassle. Had to wait and meet the guy to let him into the apartment. He didn't show up. So I ended up twiddling my thumbs at the apartment while waiting for the guy, and he didn't show up. So I call again. After about the third call, the guy comes out and he shoots a little Freon into the back of the machine and says, all right, you're good to go. That lasted for about 3 days. So then I was back on the horn, dealing with it. So the point I'm making with telling this story is that renting is not totally hassle-free either. Let's be honest, okay? But anyway, the hassle of that. Now, if you owned it, if that was a condo you owned or a single-family house that you owned, and the refrigerator was shooting craps, no, you wouldn't have a landlord to call about fixing it. But you could also run up to the Home Depot or the Lowe's and buy a new refrigerator, one just like you want. That has crushed ice in the door, one that has a second ice maker, one that has chilled water. Whatever you could afford and are willing to spend, you can buy whatever you want when you want it. You're not at the beck and call of a landlord who might or might not be interested in spending any money on your unit. Okay. So again, hassle, probably still more hassle in owning than in renting, but not as much as what you would think. Then when you look at this as a comparison, as an investment comparison, there is no comparison. Again, granted, you're not participating in any depreciation. If the values in your area start to drop, well, you walk away from that at the end of your lease, and there's no downside. Or if you own it and the prices in the neighborhood drop, then yeah, it's up to you to sell it or to rent it out or do whatever you're going to want to do to it. But chances are that that's not going to happen anytime soon. But you also have, now you're also going to look at, it's not free, to get into either one, either a rental or a purchase. Now with a rental, here recently, the rental markets have been pretty tight. So for you to, it's not going to be free for you to get in. Very often they want the first month's rent and at least 1 month's security deposit. In some tight markets, they might ask for 2 months security deposit. So when you start looking at that, as far as the money to get into the deal, by the time you start coming up with like 3 months worth of payments to be able to get in, you're starting to come up with enough money to be able to get into consideration of being able to buy a house. So again, as far as the money gets in there now, when I was getting ready to do this video, I was reading some articles on the internet, and one by the New York Times. You would think that would be a pretty reputable article. Furthered the notion that you had to put 20% down. No, you do not have to put 20% down. But if you don't, you're going to have to pay some kind of mortgage insurance, be it a VA funding fee, USDA guarantee fee, the mortgage insurance premium for FHA, or a private mortgage insurance premium for conventional. If you put less than 20% down, you're generally going to have to pay some kind of mortgage insurance on it. Not all the time, but most of the time. We can do some programs where you can put like 10% down, and we can lend you 10% on a second, which gives you the 20% in order to be able to avoid the PMI. Again, that's getting into the weeds a little bit. If you have any questions about that sort of thing, I'll do a whole video on how to get into a house with as little as possible. But the point I want to make here is that there's a cost of getting into a rental. There's a cost of getting into a purchase. The cost of getting into the purchase is going to have 3 categories of cost. Those are going to be the down payment, okay, which can be as little as 0. If you went with an FHA, it'd be like 3.5%. You can go on a conventional, you can go down as low as 3%. Whenever on a conventional, when you're putting less down, your mortgage insurance gets proportionately expensive. On FHA, the mortgage insurance is a percentage of the amount borrowed. Sorry, my hot rod neighbor's going by. Okay, he's got a bunch of angry hornets in his muffler there. But anyway, now I derailed my train of thought. Basically, as far as the cost of getting into the property, if that's where we were at, you don't have you can get into as little as 0%, 3%, 3.5%. Just remember, your mortgage insurance on the conventional is going to be more expensive. The mortgage insurance on FHA and a VA and such is going to be more expensive as well, because but the mortgage, because you're putting less down, but the mortgage insurance rate doesn't go up because you're putting a small amount down, which might be a consideration on which type of mortgage you want to go with. If you want to go with a government loan versus a conventional loan. Okay, again, getting into the weeds. But when you compare it as an investment, there's really not a comparison. Owning is a lot better. You get to participate. You also have certain tax consequences that are going to benefit you. Now, with the tax reform bill, it's not as big a thing as what it used to be, but still, you're locking in the value of an asset, and you can live in that house for 20 years. Think about older folks that you've known. How many older folks that you've known that have had their house paid off free and clear? They're sitting there, they live in a house that's worth $500,000 that maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they paid $120,000 for. It's appreciated over the years, plus they've paid their mortgage down. Now they're sitting on $500,000 worth of equity. If you're that person, call me. There's things that we can do with that equity. Anyway, I'm not going to go on very much longer here. Buying versus renting, it basically comes down to a lifestyle choice. If it's something that you think you might want to explore, there are a lot of things. I encourage you to read up on the internet about it. Take everything you read with a grain of salt. Take what I tell you with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Come to your own conclusions. But overall, as long as you're going to be in the house for 3 to 5 years, the longer the better, then buying generally wins out. Yeah, the hassle of owning is going to be more, but you can protect yourself against that. You can set up schedules with landscaping companies to come mow your grass and to shovel your walk if you live in an area that has snow, or to trim your hedges, or whatever the case might be. Again, those things cost. Compare the cost of renting versus buying by paying those, and then make your decision on what's best for you. Anyway, if you have any questions about it, it's a complicated topic, but I'm here for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Now let's put you into that house.